Hello, and welcome to the Pandemic Pinup Happy Hour. If this is your first time, I'm really glad you stopped by. And if you've hung out with me before, then welcome to the new studio. I'm taking a lot of brave choices today in trying out the studio live with you guys without ever having actually tested it. The furniture pieces I've made, the color contrast, the lighting. The whole setup is really new to me, so there might be some weird isms that happen throughout the show today. If you see anything, have any comments on things I could tweak from the viewer standpoint, I'm here for all of that feedback. But today, we are going to be doing a mojito party because I love a good mojito, but sometimes they're just kind of like all the same. Or when you see a variation of a mojito, I feel like I see the same ones all the time. Regular mojitos, strawberry mojitos, and occasionally I think I see a watermelon mojito. Might be a Texas thing. But I wanted to bring to you guys three absolutely off-the-wall mojitos, if you will, and just kind of explain where I came up with them, where the ingredients are from, and just show you how you can take a classic cocktail and then create your own variation of it while still staying true to whatever the format that cocktail was made with. So our first mojito we'll be making today is something I'm calling RSVP, as in Répondez s'il vous plaît, which just means respond please to an invitation. And I chose that name because I was very inspired first by French ingredients, kind of, and then also just because it felt like the type of mojito that you would have if you were having like a garden party or just a brunch and inviting a few friends over and you wanted to make sure they'd be there so you knew you would have all of the ingredients on hand. So for this mojito, we are going to be kind of steering off grid a little bit. So just for purposes of knowing what a mojito is, primarily speaking, it has a crushed lime or muddled lime with a bunch of mint leaves, some sugar, rum, and then you basically have that, add some ice, top it off with a club soda or sparkling water. So to me, when I think mojito, there's a specific format of ingredients that it follows. There's a citrus. There's some things sweet, but not incredibly sweet. Mojitos are known for being kind of tart, refreshing. There's an herbal quality, which is the mint. And then it always has some kind of bubbles added to it. There was an episode about mojitos that I did last year, and I introduced a few viewers to the Royal Mojito, which is where you take a standard mojito, and then instead of club soda, you top it off with champagne. I'm actually doing a riff on that today as well. But so for the RSVP mojito, we are not building it in glass the way you would a traditional mojito. We are going to do it in a shaker. And that's just because I really want to really be able to break down some of the ingredients that I don't feel comfortable doing in the glass. And then I want to shake the citrus that I'm adding so that it gets a nice aeration added to it and brightens up the cocktail. So we're starting with herbs de Provence, or like provincial herbs. You might have seen just HDP is a common abbreviation. It is a very non-specific blend of herbs, but traditionally most people recognize it because it's that herb blend that you find in your stores that has lavender in it, and a lot of people don't know what to do with it. But the ingredients I love in herbs de Provence specifically would be rosemary, thyme, and lavender. I find that those three together are just beautiful. Oregano is also really nice in there. So I just kind of tried to keep it simple, but still holding true to the spice blend flavor profile. So I have some fresh rosemary, some fresh thyme, and some dried lavender buds because I was unable to find the fresh ones. So I just have about, give or take, I just kind of put a little pinch here and there of everything, and it's kind of nice. You could adjust the blend if you like more lavender, more rosemary, more thyme. So I'm going to put that directly into the base of my shaker tin. And then I'm going to be using sorry, not a lime. Lime is the other one. I'm going to be using lemon juice for this one because lemon and lavender are a very classic French pairing in food and pastry. And I just thought, well, we could totally put that in a drink. So I have some lemon juice. And we're going to measure out a ½ ounce of lemon juice and pour it directly on top of our herbs. And then a lot of traditional mojitos will use actual sugar, which I'm going to be doing for one of these variations, but I chose to use a simple syrup, just a regular 1-to-1 ratio for this particular cocktail. And I'm going to be using a 1/4 ounce. I really wanted this mojito to taste kind of delicate in a way because there is something called rum agricole, and it's usually spelled RHUM, and it's produced in a lot of Caribbean countries that at some point had the French government involved, and that's kind of where they get that spelling. So I wanted to use a rum agricole. I wanted to do these French ingredients herb-wise, and then I wanted to do a classic French pairing with lemon and lavender, and then to just kind of put it all together, I wanted to add in a little vermouth into my spirit base. So in my shaker, I have the herbs, I have the lemon, I have the simple syrup, and then I'm going to add a 1/2 ounce of a dry vermouth. Now this one I have is a Noilly Prat. It's actually from France. So a 1/2 ounce of that. This one is an extra dry. You could use a regular dry if that's all you have. You could absolutely use a sweeter white vermouth, but it is going to change a little bit on that profile in the cocktail. So with just those ingredients in there, before we add any rum, I'm going to grab my muddler, and I'm just really going to sit here and try to extract some of those oils that can be in the herbs, just kind of crush them and let all their aromatics infuse into the citrus, the vermouth, and that sugar is just going to tie them all together really, really nicely. So once I have all that, I'm going to go ahead and add in 1.5 ounces of rum. And now I am just using a Demerara silver rum. Like I said, I would recommend this with a rum agricole. I'm trying to get through this bottle so I can justify getting a new bottle. My next one will be a rum agricole, I promise. So 1.5 ounces of that, pouring that right in there. Then we're going to add some ice and we're going to shake it. So, we're going to shake for about 10, maybe 15 seconds. Now, as I'm shaking this, I realized that I've forgotten one of my garnishes downstairs, but it's entirely fine. Cocktail garnishes are absolutely optional. I think they add a really pretty quality to it. It's kind of like women. I've met a lot of women. They're like, I never leave the house without lipstick on or things like that. It's just a nice finishing touch, but it's not absolutely necessary. You will definitely see the garnish in the photo, but I have this really nice little glass here, and I'm gonna fill it with Sonic Ice because that's my jam. If you've ever watched one of these, I talk about Sonic Ice all day. Sonic, if you're listening, sponsor me, or whoever makes those Pebble Ice countertop makers. I will use it in all of my cocktails. If you want to send me one, I will use it. I will absolutely. A little sugar. All right, probably have to end up topping that off with more ice as we go. Pebble Ice likes to settle quite a bit, so sometimes you end up having to top it off. So this is mojito that we're going to strain. And again, I am saying mojito loosely. These are just mojito inspired cocktails. They're in no way a traditional mojito. I'm not doing any crazy fine straining here with a double strain method. I'm just using a classic hawthorne strainer, pouring that over my pebble ice. There are some little bits and pieces of the herbs that'll get through, and that's absolutely okay. And then I'm going to top it off with some soda water. And I also love to talk about sparkling waters just because bubbles are a real thing that people don't always think about because bubbles have different textures, different sizes, and sometimes we just think of it as like something bubbly or a chaser. So if you've ever had like Perrier, there you go. Look at that ice so perfect. I'm gonna top it off with a little ice before more soda. If you've ever had like Perrier, Perrier is a very delicate bubble, really fine tuned bubble. Whereas something like Topo Chico, which is very popular in Texas, has a much bigger bubble and they kind of just hit the palate a little differently. So I'm so sad to say this isn't going to look as pretty as it is in the photo that I put on Instagram later, just because I'm in a studio upstairs now. And I'm not running downstairs when I forget things. We're just rolling with it, guys. So imagine, if you will, the garnish on this is a bouquet garni. I took the herbs and I made this little bundle with some twine. It's a very classic culinary technique where you bind a bunch of herbs together, you toss them in your broth or your soups or your sauces that you're making to help them infuse, but also help extract it all in one piece. So I made a bouquet garni. That's going to go here on the rim, and that, guys, is the RSVP. It's so nice. I don't know what it is about this combo, but I was playing around with it, and it is incredibly refined tasting. Now, I will say, I did try this the first time with a smaller bubble, such as Perrier, and I feel like it refines it and a little more. The Topo Chico is like, it's refined, but you know she's going somewhere afterwards for a much less refined party. So that's the RSVP. And then I'm super excited about this one because I'm going to do something I've never actually done before. And if you are watching, I would love to hear your feedback on the presentation of this cocktail, because from the research that I did, apparently it's a very divisive issue. So I'm going to make something that I'm calling the Royal Treatment. This is going to be another shaken mojito. And what we're going to do is we are going to prepare our sugar. We are going to take half of a lime. Now I'm saying this loosely because this is a coconut rum based cocktail. And also, if you've been tuning in long enough, you know I'm not a huge fan of a lot of flavored liquors or alcohols of any kind, but sometimes they can be okay. Now, coconut rum on the market can vary greatly from super sweet to just, hints of coconut. So the rum that I happen to pick up is a little bit sweeter than I would usually go for, so I'm adding half of a lime. If your coconut rum isn't terribly sweet, then you can just do a quarter of a lime, because the mojito build does still have a little bit of sugar in it. Or you could just omit the sugar entirely. So I'm putting half of a lime in there. And then I am going to get my sugar and add about a bar spoon's worth. And again, this is loosely. It also depends on the rum that you choose. And then I'm going to use a 3/4 ounce of coconut water. And I actually happened to pick up a pressed coconut water today, so it's a little milky in appearance. It's not as clear as most coconut waters come off, which means the cocktail is going to have a lightly murky consistency or look to it, not consistency, because it's still a very smooth, watery coconut water. It just looks milky because it's pressed instead of just being poured out of the coconut. So I've added that, and then I'm going to go in and add some mint. And let's see, I'm going to say I would recommend adding, depending on your leaves, anywhere between 6 to 12 leaves. If you have really small ones, you can add definitely a bunch more. But if you have like really, really large leaves, sometimes the leaves I get are like that big, then definitely don't put 12 of those in there unless you just really love mint that much. But it is a mojito. Mint is sometimes very much the focus. So we're going to go ahead, put quite a substantial amount of leaves in there, grab my muddler, and we are going to mash these limes. I'm really focusing here on pressing lightly on the mint, but I am really wanting to break up the lime because I want that peel, the bitterness to come out. I want that pulp. But remember, this is also a shaken cocktail, so I don't have to do too much crazy work here. I'm just trying to kind of speed up the process a little bit, because when you do shake it, it will continue to break it up, release those oils, get all those aromatics involved in the cocktail. So now I'm going to go ahead and add 2 ounces of my coconut rum. And yeah, it's a much stronger pour than the last one. Much stronger pour, which is totally fine. I think it depends on the spirit. Some spirits have more of a backbone than others, and I don't think there's just a standard where you should have to use an ounce and a half for this, 2 ounces for this. Obviously, there are very specific recipes that are classic cocktails that would be the build that you would want to use. However, if you're just playing around and making variations, it's always good to start small, the way you do with salt in a kitchen, because once you put in too much, it's really hard to keep adjusting. So if you're not sure how much to put in there, I always tell people start with 1.5 ounces if you're using a standard spirit that's about 40 ABV, and that'll give you a good backbone to start working with. Taste all your ingredients, and then you can be like, I'd like to add some. And quite honestly, you can add in 1/4 ounce increments. A lot of people like to do 1/2 ounce increments, but you would be surprised how many cocktails I have made or had where 1 ounce and 3/4 is a much more perfect balance than a full 2 ounce pour. So this one's gonna have a full 2 ounce pour though. So I've added that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and add some ice, and we're gonna shake it. If you remember, as I mentioned, a royal mojito a royal mojito traditionally has champagne as a top off instead of a sparkling water or club soda. So we're going to top this one off with just sparkling wine. So the serve that I find apparently is incredibly divisive, which I've always seen. I'm not really honestly sure if I like it. I think this is kind of a cool way to do it, but I think some people disagree. So if you don't like this serve, by all means, just serve it up. I am going to strain this into a coupe. I'm going to be using a fine mesh and a Hawthorne strainer to double strain it. It's called the royal treatment. I feel like it should be super refined, not with a ton of bits. But instead of serving it up in the coupe, I have a little sphere of ice that I'm going to set inside my coupe. So just kind of keep it cold, help some of that water come in and out of there, and just kind of evolve with the cocktail and keep the bubbles from the champagne nice and bubbly, because ice really does help. So you guys can tell me what you think about ice in a coupe. I've seen a few types of ways that people do that, where it's an orb, or it's a cube, where they actually put like the pebble ice that I love so much in there. But I'm going to top it off with a little champagne, and it's about 2 ounces. This is a red sparkling, so look at how pretty that is. Very, very nice. And then I'm going to do a little mint on top. And you can choose a sparkling white wine, sparkling red wine. I just found this to be a really interesting combination of flavors, because you get a little bit of a different fruity note that gets added. Oh my gosh, that's so good. It's really hard to just explain in a single word what this tastes like. The bubbles are really delicate. The mint is really nice, but it is subtle. Again, I could have used more mint, or I could have mushed it up more, muddled it up more. And then the coconut is really, really nice. It's not overpoweringly sweet. That's good stuff. Yeah, I like this. And I think the coconut water is it's really nice. First of all, it helps you hydrate, right? Coconut water has so many electrolytes in there, but it's just really, it almost adds like a very light savoriness to the cocktail, because coconut water has a certain salinity to it. So it's really nice. Now I will say I've done this twice, one with a regular champagne and then one with this one. And I was actually trying this one on camera, so I could just have like an authentic reaction to it. If it was terrible, guys, I would totally tell you. I don't want anyone to go home and make a terrible cocktail or be upset with a cocktail that you bought all the ingredients that I have so you can make it along with me and then not like it. So I will say, made with a traditional sparkling white wine, a champagne, a brut, a prosecco, sparkling white moscato, any of those, it's probably going to be more palatable for people who are into traditional flavor profiles. I like this because it adds this interesting little fruity back note to it, and I just find it fascinating. I think it's absolutely delicious. But if you're not that brave, just go with a regular like brut champagne. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna have to put this down, guys. So good. That was tasty. I'm totally crushing that after I get off of this class. So the last cocktail for today, I'm calling the Mutiny Mojito, because it pretty much does all the things that a classic mojito does, with the exception of maybe one thing. But it pretty much swaps out almost all of the ingredients in a way. So I feel like it's a mojito just kind of putting up a little bit of a fight. It wants to be classic, but it also wants to find its own path. And that's just kind of where I came up with this. So this is a pineapple tarragon rum mojito. And if you've never had tarragon, please try it out. It's a delicious herb. It's great in savory and sweet foods, and apparently in cocktails, according to moi. So I'll be building this in glass, like a traditional mojito. I am going to take this out of its little cage so you guys can watch me build it. But so I have a highball glass. I have a quarter of a lime. And sometimes if you have really fat limes like I did today, I should have cut this half or this quarter in half so that it's easier to put in there and muddle. But I'm going to just, I guess, like give it a little squeeze so it'll be a little broken up. So I have the quarter of a lime, and instead of sugar, I'm going to be using a 3/4 ounce of pineapple juice. And I didn't really feel the need for adding more sugar. Pineapple juice to me is already sweet. And when I did test it out with added sugar, it was just too much. But that's my own personal opinion. If you like sweeter cocktails, you definitely could add sugar or a simple syrup. So 3/4 ounce of pineapple. And then I have some really nice tarragon sprigs. And if you've never seen them before, they're just like trying to figure out where this angle is. So guys, my camera's like up here, and then the screen's down here, in case like anybody types anything in the chat that I'm supposed to be like answering while we're in class. And then I'm trying to figure out where to show you guys everything, so bear with me. So I don't know if you can see it better. Here, 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 here. But this is tarragon. It just kind of looks kind of creepy, kind of like it grew in the ocean. But so I'm gonna kind of just tear that apart, put that down in my glass, just like so. And then I'm going to muddle. And now tarragon has a really nice little, it has like a light mintiness to it, quite honestly. So it's going to remind you of a mojito when you drink it, but there's going to just be that difference in flavor profile that you're not really accustomed to, right? Because tarragon is not something I've ever seen actually in a cocktail. I think this is maybe the only instance is when I've used it. So if you have any other tarragon cocktails, let me know because I bought quite a bit. So I have that muddled in glass, just like a traditional mojito. And then I'm going to be using a silver rum. I'm going to use 1.5 ounces. Now, traditionally for my mojitos, I do a 2-ounce pour. And I'm going to tell you why in just a moment, why we're doing only 1.5 ounces. So got that in there. And now I'm going to add some ice. And I like to give my mojitos a little bit of a stir so that the ice can kind of settle. Because once you top it off, sometimes it's just too much soda. A lot of people are not aware of the capacity of their highball glass. Because highball glasses can vary from like 7 ounces to 14 ounces. So if this cocktail is designed to be in maybe a 9-ounce highball glass that goes to 14, and you just top it off with soda, you're gonna have so much soda in there. And it's so unnecessary. So I like to do kind of, I actually do measure out the capacity of my glasses before presenting them to you guys, before making the cocktail in it, just so I know what I'm working with. So this one, I have that mojito in there. I'm going to top it off and I'm going to measure it so you guys can see. I'm going to use 2 ounces of a sparkling water, in this case, the Topo Chico. Let that a little splash. A little came out, poured a little too fast over that ice cube. So once we have that though, my house, my drink, my fingers, I don't care. So it needs more ice cube, I think. And then the reason we did a little lighter pour on that rum is because we're going to top it off with a pineapple rum. Again, I know what I just said about flavored rums or liquors and alcohols in general, but this one is probably one of my favorites. Also, Hey Plantation, if you're out there and you want to sponsor me, I love your rum. But this is their pineapple rum, and the pineapple is put into the rum making process as opposed to added afterwards as a flavoring agent. And it just, oh my gosh, it's so nice. It just smells like roasted pineapple. And if you could take like pineapple upside down cake in its best format and put it into a rum, that's basically what this is. So we're basically doing a darker rum float, and I wanted to do the pineapple plantation rum because the pineapple flavor is already in here. It really went well with all the tarragon flavors. So I'm going to just pour that slowly and then have that float on top, kind of like a Mai Tai actually. So that's why the first initial pour was a little lighter, because we were adding another 1/2 ounce of the pineapple rum. And you could go all the way up to 1 ounce if you like a super boozy mojito. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to put this back in its beautiful little cage. Then I am going to garnish this with this is supposed to be a pirate ship, guys. It's a little lime with a pineapple frond sail. And then I have these really awesome cocktail skewers that a very good friend of mine sent to me. And one of them happens to be a pirate skeleton or pirate skull. So it couldn't have been a more perfect cocktail skewer. So this little bad boy is going to go for a swim, or I guess go for a boat ride on my cocktail. And that, guys, look at this. I'm sorry, I love really kitschy things. But yes, this is a Mutiny Mojito. Now, when you do have a float on a cocktail, if I were to sip this just as is, I'm going to get that pineapple plantation rum only because it's floating on top, especially with the layer of soda in between. So I would absolutely serve this with a straw. However, I don't mind pineapple plantation rum, so I would probably just sip this from the top first and then give it a stir, let it evolve, let all those flavors come together. But it is beautifully fragrant and oh so tasty. Definitely a lot of rum on the top, but I'm not complaining. But yes, absolutely delicious Mutiny Mojito. So guys, that's all I've got for you guys. That is the Mojito Party. And for the rest of the summer or the rest of July, we're doing a lot of like summer weather cocktails, if you will. They're designed to keep you refreshed, to keep you cold, but also keep you boozy and happy. So today was mojitos, and next week, ice cream cocktails. So excited about this. Pretty sure we're doing a variation on an affogato, which is one of my favorite coffee ice cream cocktails. Or not, I mean, it is a cocktail, but it's weird. It's like hot and cold. It's really cool. It's from Italy. We'll be doing a milkshake. I haven't had a milkshake in a hot minute, and I thought boozy milkshake sounded so delicious. And I'm working on a variation of a root beer float, which I've done a lot of those over the years. So I'm trying to find something a little new and off the wall. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you for joining me. If you're viewing this in the Underground Cooking Club Facebook group page, please feel free to leave any comments, any questions, reach out with absolutely anything, whether it's related to this class, a different cocktail that I might have made for you before, or if you're just experimenting at home and you have questions about infusions or favorite bottles to have behind your bar or different things like that, just reach out for any reason at all. I'm here to help you improve your bar experience. All of these videos get uploaded to YouTube later on during the week when I have time to edit. All of the photos and recipes get uploaded to the Pandemic Pinup Instagram account. And I upload videos Monday to Saturday of just a whole bunch of unrelated cocktails that are not made in this class, but just extra information, extra recipes, extra techniques that you can do to the @Pandemic Pinup TikTok account. The rest of my accounts are not linked very well. So if you just see my name somewhere, I am the only Chandler Tomeko. Feel free to just reach out with any of your questions through any of my accounts because my social media life is a mess and I'm very well aware. So I'm also very, very accommodating with however you communicate with me. But please try these. Let me know your thoughts on the ice cubes or ice in a coupe. Let me know your thoughts if you try any of these cocktails. And also let me know what you'd like to see because I build classes all the time. I'm always looking for new ideas. So if you guys have specific bottles you're trying to use, flavors you're trying to understand, or a party you're trying to plan for and you want a little help, just reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to make a class with it. But that is all I've got. Yeah, I will hopefully see you guys next Sunday. Thanks for tuning in.